Have you ever walked into a room full of people and instantly felt your energy drop before you even said a single word? The chatter, the forced laughter, the endless loop of small talk about the weather or who's busy at work. On the outside, it looks harmless. But on the inside, you feel like you're slowly suffocating. If you've ever wondered why this happens to you, you're not alone. Many of the most brilliant minds in history, philosophers, writers, scientists, felt the same. It's not that they hated people, it's that they hated pretending to connect when nothing real was happening. And that's the key difference. Smart people don't despise humanity. They despise the shallow performances that society often mistakes for connection. Think about it. When was the last time you left a social event and felt truly energized, inspired, or understood? More often than not, you walk away drained. Why? Because the conversations weren't built on truth or depth. They were built on masks. People ask, "How are you?" But they don't really want to know. They nod politely while waiting for their turn to speak. And if you happen to crave honesty, silence, or meaningful dialogue, the Stoic philosopher Seneca warned about this 2,000 years ago. He said, wasting your time with the wrong company is the most dangerous form of poverty. And he was right. You can earn back lost money. You can rebuild lost possessions. But time spent in empty conversations with people who drain your spirit instead of feeding it, that's gone forever. I remember once leaving a dinner party early. Everyone else was laughing over gossip about celebrities and neighbors. But one quiet man barely said a word. Later, someone asked him why. And he said, "I don't hate people. I just can't pretend these things matter." That single sentence explains why so many intelligent people step back from the crowd. It's not arrogance, it's clarity. So in this video, we're going to uncover 12 surprising reasons why smart people often find socializing more draining than rewarding. Some of them will sound familiar, like small talk that feels empty. Others may open your eyes to truths you've felt but never put into words. Let's begin. Reason number 1. Small talk feels empty. You know the routine. You walk into a room, someone smiles politely, and within seconds you're trapped in the loop. "How are you? Busy lately? Nice weather, isn't it?" These are the social scripts we've all memorized, played out 1,000 times. For most people, it's harmless. For intelligent minds, it feels like a prison of words. Why? Because small talk is predictable. It's repetitive. It doesn't go anywhere. Imagine listening to a song that only plays one note over and over again. That's what shallow conversation feels like to someone who values depth. At first, it's boring, but underneath that boredom is something sharper, a sense of time being stolen. Think about it. Every minute spent on meaningless chatter is a minute taken away from reflection, creativity. That's why smart people don't just see small talk as dull. They see it as a mask, a polite performance that keeps everyone from touching something real. I once saw this at a dinner party. The whole table buzzed with gossip about neighbors and celebrities, but one man sat quietly, barely saying a word. Later, someone asked him why he didn't join in. He simply said, "I don't hate people. I just can't pretend these things matter." That one sentence captured what so many feel but never say out loud. And here's the deeper truth. Small talk often reveals that people aren't truly listening. They nod, they smile, but they're just waiting for their turn to speak. You share something personal, and instead of connection, you get a half-hearted response before the conversation shifts back to them. For someone who craves honesty, that's not connection, it's disconnection. The Stoics knew this well. Epictetus warned against wasting words on idle chatter, reminding us that speech should serve growth or service. To use language without meaning is to dilute its value and to give away our most precious resource, time. So when intelligent people step away from small talk, it isn't arrogance, it's hunger. Hunger for truth, for meaning, for the kind of dialogue that doesn't just fill silence but gives life to it. Reason number 2, emotional overload. Step into a crowded room, a party, a family gathering, even a work event, and most people will tell you it feels exciting. They love the noise, the laughter, the constant movement. But for highly intelligent minds, it feels like standing under a waterfall of emotions with no way to catch a breath. Here's why. Smart people don't just hear words. They pick up on tone, hesitation, micro expressions, and subtle shifts in energy. One conversation can carry 3 layers: what's said, what's unsaid, and what's being carefully hidden. Now multiply that by 20 conversations happening at once, and the brain goes into overdrive. What feels like fun energy for others feels like static. Too many signals competing for attention until it becomes exhausting. I remember a colleague who dreaded company retreats. While everyone else came back, saying how much fun they had, she admitted she needed days to recover. She said, "It's not the activities, it's that I can't turn my brain off. I notice who's jealous, who's pretending, who's angry but smiling. It's like I'm carrying everyone's emotions in my head." That's the curse of awareness. When you see so much, you can't unsee it. Psychologists call this emotional sensitivity, but to the person experiencing it, it feels like suffocation. The Stoics would have called it a test of self-mastery. Epictetus taught that you can't control the noise of others, only how much of it you allow into your soul. But here's the paradox. The sharper your perception, the harder it is to block the signals. It's like having a radar that never turns off. So when intelligent people step back from social gatherings, it isn't laziness or arrogance, it's self-preservation. They know that constant exposure to other people's emotions leaves them drained, scattered, and sometimes even anxious. Solitude, on the other hand, restores clarity. It gives them space to breathe without being pulled in every direction. That's why avoiding certain events isn't about being antisocial. It's about survival. Because for intelligent minds, emotional overload isn't just tiring, it's suffocating. Reason number 3, intelligent people value time differently. For most people, socializing is just part of life. A few hours spent chatting at a bar, catching up at a party, or hanging out with friends doesn't feel like a big deal. But for someone who thinks deeply, every hour carries weight. To them, time isn't something you pass, it's something you invest. Imagine this. You spend 2 hours at a casual gathering. You laugh, you talk, you sip a drink or two. On the surface, it feels harmless. But when you get home, what are you left with? A few laughs, maybe a funny story, but nothing that really nourishes your mind or spirit. Now compare that with 2 hours spent reading a book that changes the way you think, or writing in a journal that clarifies your path. One leaves you empty, the other shapes the rest of your week. I once knew a man who was constantly teased for being antisocial. His friends didn't understand why he turned down so many invitations. Finally, he explained, "It's not that I don't like you. It's just that 2 hours at a bar leaves me drained, while 2 hours with a book changes my entire perspective." That wasn't arrogance. That was clarity about the true economy of time. Psychologists would say, intelligent people naturally think in terms of opportunity cost. They weigh every decision, often without realizing it. And when the cost of socializing outweighs the benefit, when the trade is hours given in exchange for shallow distraction, they walk away. Not because they reject people, but because they see time as a currency too precious to waste. The Stoics understood this deeply. Seneca wrote, "Nothing is ours except time." He warned that people guard their money more fiercely than their hours, even though time is the one thing we can never earn back. To spend it in empty company, he said, is the greatest form of poverty. So when smart people decline invitations or prefer solitude, it's not because they think they're better. It's because they know what their hours are worth. For them, every moment is an investment. And when the return is low, walking away isn't loss, it's wisdom. Reason number 4, intolerance for hypocrisy. Walk into almost any social gathering and you'll notice it. The polite smiles, the exaggerated compliments, the hugs that look warm but feel cold. On the surface, it seems normal, just people being civil. But for highly intelligent people, this dance of masks feels unbearable. They don't just hear the words, they sense the dissonance between what's said and what's truly meant. Imagine someone praising a colleague to their face, only to mock them the moment they leave the room. Or a friend who celebrates your success in public, but quietly resents you in private. Most shrug this off as just how people are. But to a mind that values integrity, it's corrosive. I remember a woman who avoided office parties at all costs. When asked why, she said, "It's not the noise. It's watching people hug someone they clearly can't stand. I can't sit there and pretend that's friendship." For her, pretending was a greater burden than being silent. And that's what many intelligent people feel. Hypocrisy doesn't just irritate them, it erodes trust. Psychologically, smart people are wired to seek patterns and truth. Their brains connect dots quickly, and hypocrisy shines like a broken puzzle piece. Where others see harmless politeness, they see dishonesty. And dishonesty makes every interaction heavier. The Stoics would have agreed. Marcus Aurelius wrote that we should speak only what is true and act only as justice demands. To do otherwise fractures the soul. For those who resonate with this principle, being surrounded by hypocrisy feels like breathing poisoned air. That's why many intelligent people quietly step back from social scenes. It's not because they hate people, and it's not because they think they're superior. It's because they refuse to participate in games of pretense. For them, truth, even in silence, always feels lighter than words that don't mean what they say. Reason number 5, the need for solitude to think. For many people, silence feels uncomfortable. A quiet room, an empty evening, or even just a long walk alone can make them restless. But for highly intelligent minds, solitude is not emptiness, it's nourishment. It's the space where their thoughts have room to breathe, where ideas can form and take shape without interruption. Think about how crowded socializing can be, not just physically, but mentally. In a room full of chatter, you're processing dozens of conversations, emotions, and distractions all at once. But in solitude, the noise fades. Suddenly, the clutter clears, and the mind begins to connect dots that were hidden before. What once felt tangled becomes simple, almost elegant. I once knew a professor who turned down most invitations from colleagues. People teased him, called him aloof, but he explained, "An hour alone with my journal gives me more clarity than 12 conversations filled with noise." He wasn't avoiding people out of arrogance, he was protecting the space where his ideas were born. That's the difference. For some, solitude is loneliness. For others, it's the workshop of creativity. Psychologists have long noted that intelligent people crave depth, and depth requires uninterrupted time. Without it, their thoughts scatter. Their attention is pulled in too many directions. Solitude gives them the freedom to analyze, to reflect, to ask the hard questions that get lost in the rush of daily noise. The Stoics knew this truth well. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Nowhere can man retreat more quietly than into his own soul." To him, solitude wasn't an escape, it was alignment with reason and virtue. For intelligent people, it's the same. Solitude is the fortress where clarity lives. So when they choose to spend evenings alone, when they say no to yet another social invitation, it's not rejection, it's preservation. Because for them, solitude is not optional, it's essential. Without it, they lose the ground on which wisdom grows. And with it, they find the clarity that makes life meaningful. Reason number 6, social hierarchies are irritating. Step into almost any social setting, a workplace mixer, a neighborhood barbecue, even a family dinner, and you'll see it right away. The unspoken rankings. Who commands the most attention? Who gets ignored? Who talks the loudest? And who laughs the hardest at the boss's jokes? For most people, this is normal. It's just how social life works. But for highly intelligent minds, it feels shallow, suffocating, and pointless. To them, these games of status don't create connection, they create competition. They don't care who sits at the head of the table or who drops the fanciest names to sound impressive. They care about authenticity, and once they realize most of the interaction is just posturing, they quickly lose interest. I once spoke with a man who avoided every office happy hour. His coworkers thought he was unsociable, maybe even arrogant. But when I asked him why, his answer was simple. It's watching grown adults compete to flatter the boss. Everyone calls it bonding, but it's really just politics. To him, those gatherings weren't about connection, they were about performance. Psychologically, intelligent people tend to value substance over form. They don't just hear the words, they notice the subtle shifts: who interrupts whom, who defers to whom, who speaks only when certain people are watching. And once they see those patterns, it all feels fake. While others are busy climbing ladders, they're asking the deeper question: why climb at all if the ladder leads nowhere meaningful? The Stoics would have nodded in agreement. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that fame and status are fleeting, fragile as breath. Epictetus taught that true freedom comes from indifference to rank, because virtue, not position, defines a person. That's why intelligent people often step back from environments built on hierarchy. They're not avoiding people out of arrogance. They're choosing clarity over pretense. They see the endless performance of hierarchy for what it is, a contest that never ends, with prizes that don't matter. For them, silence, solitude, or a single honest conversation will always feel more rewarding than pretending to play a game they already see through. Reason number 7, they detect manipulation quickly. Most people walk into a room and take words at face value. A compliment feels like kindness. An offer of help feels like generosity. A story sounds like simple honesty. But for highly intelligent people, it rarely stops there. Their minds pick up on the tone behind the words, the slight pause before the smile, the way someone's eyes dart across the room before they choose what to say. And often, what they detect isn't sincerity, it's strategy. Manipulation in social settings is everywhere. People exaggerate to impress, flatter to gain favor, or steer conversations to test your weaknesses. Most people don't notice because they want to believe the best in others. But intelligent people, they notice almost immediately. They can sense when a compliment is bait, when an apology is a performance, or when a supposed concern is really envy in disguise. I once knew a woman who stopped going to networking events, even though they were good for her career. When I asked her why, she said, "It's not that I don't value connections. It's that every time someone asked what I did, I could see them calculating what they could get from me." That's the hidden cost of awareness. What others see as charisma, they recognize as manipulation. And once you see the strings being pulled, it's hard to laugh at the puppet show. Psychologically, this happens because intelligent people process patterns faster. They compare present behavior with past actions. They notice inconsistencies, subtle shifts, and motives that don't match the words being spoken. To them, the truth is obvious, even if everyone else is still caught up in the illusion. The Stoics warned about this long ago. Epictetus taught that freedom comes from seeing things as they are, not as we wish them to be. Once you recognize manipulation, you're no longer fooled, but you're also no longer able to enjoy the illusions that others live by. That's why socializing often feels draining for intelligent minds. They can't turn off their awareness. What others enjoy as harmless fun, they experience as subtle games. And those are games they have no interest in playing. Reason number 8, authentic connections are rare. At the heart of socializing is a promise that we gather, we talk, we share stories, all to feel closer to one another. But for highly intelligent people, that promise often feels broken. They don't dislike company. They dislike the fact that genuine connection is so hard to find in it. On the surface, conversations at parties or dinners look pleasant enough. People laugh, trade compliments, swap anecdotes about their jobs or families. But underneath, intelligent minds sense the distance. It feels rehearsed, like everyone is playing a role instead of showing their true selves. They notice when people avoid uncomfortable truths, when they gloss over struggles, or when they stay in the shallow end of safe topics. And that leaves them craving something deeper. I once asked a friend why she left a party early. Her answer stuck with me. I don't mind listening to people's stories, but nobody really wants to be seen. They want attention, not connection. That's the difference. Attention is quick and shallow. Connection requires honesty, vulnerability, and trust. Psychologists tell us that intelligent people are wired to seek meaning. They want conversations that matter, discussions about values, fears, philosophy, even comfortable silence with someone who truly understands them. And because they see through pretense so easily, they also know how rare that kind of openness really is. The Stoics would call this clarity, not weakness. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself to only associate with those who make him better. True friendship, for the Stoics, wasn't about proximity. It was about virtue, trust, and mutual growth. That's why many intelligent people avoid wide social circles. It's not because they're antisocial. It's because they respect the authentic bonds they already have, and they know how precious those are. Once you've tasted a real connection, it becomes almost impossible to settle for anything less. So when they walk away from shallow crowds, it isn't rejection. It's reverence for truth, for meaning, and for the few rare relationships that actually feed the soul. Reason number 9, socializing interrupts creative flow. Every creative person knows this feeling. You're in the middle of a thought, the spark is alive, and the world fades into the background. The idea is fragile, still forming, but it's there, ready to be shaped into something meaningful. And then, the phone rings. A friend insists you come out. A social obligation pulls you away. By the time you return, the spark is gone. For most people, this isn't a big deal. They figure the idea will come back later. But highly intelligent people know better. Inspiration doesn't work on command. Creativity flows when the mind is free, often in solitude. And once that flow is broken, it rarely returns in the same form. What looks like a harmless interruption to others feels like losing something irreplaceable. I once knew a writer who avoided parties whenever he was drafting a book. His friends called him reclusive, even rude. But when I asked him about it, he smiled and said, "If I go, I'll laugh for a few hours. If I stay, I might write something that outlives me. Which choice makes more sense?" His answer wasn't about arrogance. It was about priorities. Psychologists call this deep work. It's the state where your mind fully immerses in one thing, connecting ideas that seemed distant before. For intelligent people, deep work is not just productive, it's vital. Socializing, with its constant pull of attention, feels like the exact opposite. Instead of diving deep, they're forced to skim the surface, and that, to them, feels like theft. The Stoics would have understood this completely. Seneca argued that nothing of value is created in a life constantly interrupted. Genius requires not just talent but space, mental space, emotional space, and time free from distraction. To him, the greatest poverty was not having too little money, but having a mind too busy to think. That's why intelligent people protect their solitude like treasure. They know their best ideas are fragile flames, easily blown out by noise and obligation. So when they decline an invitation, it's not because they hate people, it's because they know what's at stake. For them, solitude isn't isolation. It's the workshop where sparks turn into fire. Reason number 10, peace feels more rewarding. At the end of the day, the real reason many intelligent people avoid socializing has nothing to do with others at all. It's about what they discover in peace. After hours of noise, gossip, and emotional clutter, they don't walk away feeling energized. They walk away feeling hollow. But a single evening spent in stillness, with a book, a journal, or their own thoughts, leaves them nourished in a way that no party ever could. On the surface, this seems strange. Society tells us that connection, laughter, and crowds are the ingredients of a full life. The more you're out there, we're told, the happier you'll be. They find that their deepest joy often comes not from the crowd, but from the quiet. I remember a man who once described it perfectly. For years, he went to every event he was invited to, afraid he'd miss out if he stayed home. But eventually, he began saying no. At first, he felt guilty, but over time, he realized he wasn't missing anything. He was gaining everything: rest, clarity, and the freedom to live on his own terms. He told me, "I'd rather spend 1 hour in real calm than 10 hours pretending to have fun." Psychologists would agree. Peace restores the mind. It clears away the residue of manipulation, hypocrisy, and noise. It's in stillness that insights form, resilience builds, and balance returns. And for those who think deeply, peace isn't just pleasant, it's productive. The Stoics even called peace the highest form of wealth. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Intelligent people live by this truth almost instinctively. They know true reward doesn't come from chasing the noise of the crowd, but from guarding the fortress within. So yes, they may avoid socializing, not because they hate people, but because they've discovered something better: peace. And once you've tasted the richness of peace, no amount of noise can compete. Reason number 11. In almost every crowd, you'll find it: the complaining, the gossip, the subtle envy in someone's tone, the constant comparison. Most people either brush it off or join in without a second thought. But for highly intelligent people, negativity is impossible to ignore. They feel it deeply, like secondhand smoke in the air, and it drains them far more than the noise of the room itself. I once knew a friend who avoided family gatherings. It wasn't because she disliked her relatives. It was because every time she went, she left feeling worse than when she arrived. She said, "All I hear is blaming, criticizing, and complaining. Nobody encourages each other. Nobody lifts anyone up." What others called just conversation, she experienced as poison. Psychologically, this happens because intelligent people process emotions intensely. They don't just notice the words, they absorb the frustration, the jealousy, and the bitterness behind them. And once those energies sink in, it takes time and solitude to shake them off. The Stoics were clear about this danger. Marcus Aurelius warned himself daily to avoid being dragged down by toxic minds, reminding that the soul can be stained by the company it keeps. To the Stoics, surrounding yourself with negativity wasn't harmless, it was contamination. That's why intelligent people often step away. It's not because they're fragile, it's because they're aware. They know that constant exposure to bitterness can slowly chip away at clarity, peace, and even self-respect. Choosing to avoid negativity isn't weakness, it's wisdom. So when they turn down invitations, when they walk out of rooms where the atmosphere feels heavy, it's not rejection of people, it's protection of their inner world. Because they understand one truth: you can't control the words that come out of other people's mouths, but you can control how much of that darkness you allow into your own soul. Reason number 12. They value quality over quantity in relationships. For many people, having a long contact list or a big circle of friends is a badge of honor. The more connections, the better. But highly intelligent people see it differently. They know that more doesn't always mean better, especially when it comes to relationships. They're not interested in how many people show up at their birthday or how many likes their posts get online. They'd rather share one honest, vulnerable conversation with a true friend than spend hours surrounded by dozens of people who only skim the surface. I once knew a teacher who put it perfectly. She said, "I'd rather have one friend I can call at 3 a.m. than 50 colleagues who only talk about work." That's the difference. For intelligent people, relationships aren't about collecting names. They're about building bonds that last, rooted in trust and growth. Psychologists agree. Meaningful relationships are one of the strongest predictors of happiness. But meaningful doesn't mean many. In fact, the more superficial connections we juggle, the less energy we have left for the ones that matter most. Intelligent people sense this instinctively. They protect their time and emotional energy by pouring it into a few rare relationships that actually feed their soul. The Stoics spoke directly to this. Seneca once wrote, "He who has many friends has none." What he meant is simple. When you spread yourself too thin, you end up with no true loyalty, no depth. But even one genuine friend is enough to make life rich. That's why intelligent people step back from shallow social circles. It's not rejection, it's refinement. They're choosing depth over breadth, truth over appearance, and quality over quantity. Because in the end, it's not how many people you know that matters. It's how many truly know you. So if you ever feel out of place because your circle is small, remember this. It's not the size of your crowd that defines your life. It's the strength of your connections. So there you have it. 12 reasons why highly intelligent people often find socializing more draining than rewarding. It's not arrogance, and it's not antisocial behavior. It's clarity. They see through masks. They feel the noise more deeply. They value their time like currency, protect their solitude like treasure, and cherish authentic connection over shallow crowds. The truth is simple. For intelligent minds, life isn't about collecting faces in a room. It's about cultivating meaning. And when the cost of a social gathering is wasted hours, fake smiles, or emotional exhaustion, they know the trade isn't worth it. Walking away isn't weakness, it's wisdom. The Stoics warned us centuries ago. Seneca wrote that wasting time with the wrong company is the greatest form of poverty. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that peace and strength are found within, not in the noise of the crowd. And Epictetus taught that freedom comes from seeing things as they truly are. Intelligent people live by these truths. So the next time you feel guilty for saying no to an invitation, or when you wonder why you leave certain gatherings feeling empty, remember this. You're not broken. You're aware. You've seen the difference between noise and meaning, and you're choosing the latter. Ask yourself honestly, how much of your life have you traded for noise that left you drained? And how much more alive would you feel if you started choosing peace instead? Because in the end, the richest life isn't measured by how many parties you attended or how many people you know. It's measured by how deeply you live, how wisely you use your time, and how faithfully you protect your inner world. So if this video resonated with you, I invite you to claim it in the comments with 3 simple words. I choose peace. Let that be your reminder that you're not missing out by stepping away from the noise. You're stepping into something better. And if you want more insights like this, rooted in Stoic wisdom and modern psychology, make sure to like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more. Because sometimes, the smartest move you can make is to stay silent and guard your peace.